Hello and welcome to the first video of my new channel, which is The Football Nerd. I'll be giving you football videos and I'll be talking football. Not FIFA, just football. And to start with, I'll be talking about fantasy football. Today I've got with me a prized possession, which is my school's fantasy league trophy winner, as you can see. It's from the 2011 to 12 season. I was in year 10. In that season, I had Van Persie all the way through. Basically won it for me. Scored over 20 goals. But it was actually Sergio Aguero that won it for me on the last day of the season. Luckily, obviously with him scoring highly against QPR on the last day, brought home the trophy for me. So yeah, very proud of that achievement. I've been playing fantasy football for 7 years now. It's been a passion of mine. I love playing it every season. The best bit about fantasy football is picking your team at the start of the season, and it's that time again this year. I've picked my team after much chopping and changing. I've finally come up with a team that I'm happy with. I'm actually very happy with it. So yeah, I'll be talking to you about my team. I'll be trying to cover everything fantasy football in this video. So to start with, I'm going to go through the best players in this season's game. In the 2015-16 Premier League season, I'll be playing the Premier League fantasy game on the Premier League website. I think it's better than the Sun's version. I don't like the Sun's version because, well, the bonus points get picked by the Sun journalists, who I don't really trust. So yeah, so I'll be playing the Premier League version. I've been playing that version for 7 years. It's the version of the game that I'm best at, obviously, with experience of playing it. The Sun, I've played the Sun version, but I lost interest because you can't pick subs. You have to stick with 11 men until the January transfer window. It's a lot more flexible. The Fantasy Premier League, you can save your season by doing transfers. You get obviously one a week if you played the Premier League version. So I'll be playing that one again. I'm looking forward to playing it. On the Sun version, you don't get points for assists either, which is a bit annoying. I always look for players that have got good stats in terms of goals and assists, not just goals. So yeah, I'll be talking to you the players that are best on the Premier League version. I've played the Sky Sports game as well, which is a similar sort of game, similar point scoring, but the difference with that is defensive midfielders score very highly, which makes the game a bit easier. You have to change the way you look at players, I think, because I normally don't go for defensive midfielders at all. I think on the Premier League game, you're best going for wingers or attacking midfielders in midfield, whereas on the Sky Sports game, players like Santi Cazorla plays deep for Arsenal. You've got Mikel Arteta, you've got Matic for Chelsea, all score very highly, did last season. They were some of the best players on the game. This is because you get points for passes completed. So if a player completes over 60 passes in a game, then they get 2 points. I think that's right. Yeah, 2 points. So, with players like Arteta who recycle the ball a lot, they pass it on to other players. Michael Carrick's another one for United. They score very highly in terms of passes completed. Also, players get points for every 4 tackles they make. So in a game of 90 minutes, 4 tackles isn't a lot at all. I mean, some players might get to, say, 12 tackles a game and they've got 6 points, so that's something to consider if you're playing the Sky Sports game. Bastian Schweinsteiger, as we know, a brilliant midfielder because he can pass the ball as well as tackle and make interceptions. So he'll be very good. He'll be the player to have in the Sky Sports game. So I'll be talking about the best players now in the Premier League game in terms of price ranges and value and things like that. So the players I'm going to focus on are players that are out of position. Now, this is something to keep in mind because some players might be listed on the game as, say, a defender, but they might play as a midfielder or a wing back, for example. For example, Jeffrey Schlupp for Leicester, who can play as a wing back, but last season he played as a left midfielder. Got up the pitch quite a lot, made a few assists as well. Similar player to Schlupp is, well, a higher rated player, comes in at a higher price obviously. Jeffrey Schlupp is 5 million, which I consider that to be a good price for a midfield player if you want to class him as a midfield player. Schlupp on the game is a defender, so he'll score more points for scoring goals. He'll get assists for you as well as points for keeping clean sheets. So great player on the game. Another one, Antonio Valencia. Now, Antonio Valencia, I was surprised about this one because, since the game, since he's come to the league, he's been a midfielder. He's played as a midfielder for 10 years, I think. It's 9 years. He came to Wigan after the 2006 World Cup, so he's been a midfielder. He's been a good winger for all those years because he gets forward, he gets crosses into the box, plenty of assists from Valencia. Since, I think it was David Moyes that converted him to a right wing back because of his defensive qualities. He can also get forward from that position. And if we're talking about Valencia as being an attacking wing back, then the same goes for Luke Shaw, who may start for United. I think he did towards the end of last season, broke into the team. Obviously, highly rated wing back. Luke Shaw, I think he was 37 million or something along those lines for United. So they've got to play him at that price, and he's the same price as Valencia, Luke Shaw, on the Premier League game. So it's up to you which one you go for. I'd highly recommend at 5.5 million Antonio Valencia and Luke Shaw. Because they're sort of out of position. They're OOP if you're a fantasy football fan. So the next thing to bear in mind in terms of players of teams are good fixtures. Well, you've got to bear in mind good and bad fixtures, I think. So the teams with good fixtures, you want to play them, I'd say, over the course of 6 games. I think you need to focus on the fixtures in terms of your choice of players, especially from the start of the season, because you can do what you want with your team. You can start the season with whoever you want. You can change it after 6 games or whenever you want to. So I'd pick Man United players, I've gone for 3 United players to start with, because the first 6 games are all winnable. You know, I expect United to get off to a great start to the season. Obviously, you know, with new signings as well, it'd be even better than last season. Memphis Depay, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and Schneiderlin as well, who might play for United. Definitely strengthen the side. So they've got Tottenham, first game of the season at home. You know, they always seem to beat Tottenham. I think they've only lost once in the last 20 years. And that was when they had Gareth Bale, Spurs. So, you know, not a lot to worry about in that game. Aston Villa away, another game that United expect to win. Newcastle at home, you know, you put your money on United to win that one. And, you know, the likes of Valencia and Rooney to score highly in that one. The same goes with Swansea away. I mean, it might be a tough test or it might be a tougher test than the last 3 games away at Swansea, but you know, again, they should at least get a draw in that one, you know, and that means you know, United players don't disappoint. So first 4 games, nothing to worry about. Liverpool at home. Now, this depends on your opinion on Liverpool, you know, if they've benefited from selling Sterling and getting Firmino and James Milner in the team, Danny Ings as well. You know, it depends on whether you think that's a step up or a step backwards for Liverpool. But I think United will win that game. I expect Rooney. I mean, Rooney always plays. He always seems to score against Liverpool. And Southampton away, which, you know, it's probably the toughest game. You know, obviously with Southampton finishing 7th, was it, last season? So, yeah, I mean, the first 5 games, you know, they can win them all. And Southampton away, you know, they'd probably get a draw there. Southampton, obviously, a very impressive team. And we're going to move on to Southampton now. You know, I've talked about Man United. I'd recommend getting 3 United players, looking at the first 6 games, and obviously beyond that, you know, I'd like to have Man United players to start the season. Southampton then, and you know, they've got some easy home games, I'd say. You know, Norwich and Everton to start the season. And, you know, pretty easy away games as well. I mean, Newcastle away, Watford away. We don't really know about Watford yet, but I think they'll struggle. West Brom away as well. So, you know, you'd expect them to get points from all of those 5, but I mean, it's not necessarily about points in this game. It's not necessarily about winning games in this game, should I say. It's about players like Graziano Pelle getting on the score sheet. And against those 5 teams, you'd expect him to do so. So, you know, it takes 5 games for them to have a big test, and that will be at Man United in the 6th game of the season. I mean, you could bench your Southampton players. I'm going for 2 Southampton players, so I mean, they could easily be dropped to the bench for that one with United in town. So, yeah, Southampton players to look for. They've lost Nathaniel Klein, but they've gained a wing back from Sporting Lisbon called Cedric Suarez, who's only 3 million. On the game, he comes in at 5 million, you know, so a decent price range. The same as Jeffrey Schlupp, and he likes to get forward. He could get a few assists. I'm looking forward to seeing him play, actually, Cedric Suarez. I think he'll be a good replacement for Nathaniel Klein, and therefore I think he'll start straight away as a straight swap for Nathaniel Klein. A team with more good fixtures are Arsenal. Now, there's a lot of Arsenal players to choose from, so I mean, you'd have to have a look at stats from last season, appearances from last season. Danny Welbeck's injured at the moment. He's missed the pre-season tour of Asia with his knee injury. He's a doubt to start the season. I don't think he will by the looks of things. Even if his knee's healed by then, he won't have the match fitness of players who've played on that pre-season tour. So I'd look into Arsenal players. It's all about getting value. It's all about getting players that'll fit into your team. So Arsenal's fixtures are looking very good. They've got West Ham at home, Palace away, Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Stoke at home, and then their test is again 6th game of the season. So they've had five games that they could win. No real test there. I mean, Stoke, it would be a test if it was at the Britannia Stadium, but at home they always seem to beat Stoke. And then Chelsea, last season it was 0-0, so they can get points from Chelsea. So I might even play my Arsenal players for that game, just in case. Villa have got good fixtures as well. They look weaker than last season, the team that got to the cup final, but bearing in mind they only just escaped relegation. They've got Bournemouth away, Man U at home, a game that they'll probably lose in all fairness. Palace away, Sunderland at home, Leicester away, and West Bromwich Albion at home. So, they could get off to a good start. Villa, they're a team that can win when they need to. Last season they won when they needed to, and that's what kept them up in the end. They particularly lost games at home that they maybe should have won against the likes of Palace and Burnley, last game of the season. So they do have a mixed bag of results usually. So it's up to you whether you want to back Villa. And finally, Man City, I think pretty much any sort of fixtures, good fixtures for City, similar to Chelsea, they're the big teams in the league. So they could beat anyone. So you don't really need to consider fixtures as much for, the big players in your team, because they're the players that you're going to keep for the majority of your season. City have got West Brom away, they've got Chelsea at home, Everton away, Watford at home, Crystal Palace away, and West Ham at home. Make your mind up on that one. I'd consider Raheem Sterling as the best choice for Man City in attack, because Aguero comes in at 13 million, which I think is too expensive. When there's players like Diego Costa, 11 million, Rooney at 10.5, there are better striking options for less money. It's whether you want to go for Aguero for them extra goals. Another player, Harry Kane, 9.5 million, probably better value than Aguero. But Raheem Sterling, he's the best option for Man City. He can score goals, he can get assists for the likes of Aguero. I expect him to do better than last season, although he did have a good season for Liverpool last season. He was by far their best player. Just looking now, he got 7 goals, 10 assists. you know, might even double both of those stats next season for City, you know, who are a better team overall, get forward more, score more goals. So, yeah, Sterling 9 million, great value. You know, I expected him to be a lot more expensive than that when you consider that Hazard is, I think, 11.5 million. You know, you've got Sanchez, who's 10 million, I think. So Raheem Sterling at 9 million, I think he's a must. I think you must have Sterling in your team for next season. So we've had a look at the fixtures. We've had a look at the teams who you should go for their players. Now it's time to look at teams to avoid. You know, players that won't score as highly because they have poor fixtures. So we've got West Ham, who have got really tough away games. They've got Arsenal away, they've got Liverpool away and City away as well in the first 6 games, you know, so I expect them to lose, if I'm honest, all 3 of those games, you know. It's a very tough start to the season for West Ham, and our new manager, Slaven Bilic, who actually knocked England out of the Euro 2008 qualifiers. So yeah, you know, I'd steer clear of Dimitri Payet, of Kevin Nolan, Andy Carroll, who I think's back now, and Sacco, and whichever other West Ham player you're thinking of getting in your team. I'd stay clear of those players for the time being. Just wait for those fixtures to get out of the way and then put them in your team after that. Another team with tricky fixtures, Liverpool. They've got Stoke away, of course, on the same fixture on the last day of last season. We all know what happened then. 6-1. Now, I love that game. I was there myself, and you know, you could tell from the first 10 minutes that Stoke were going to win the game. They were on top. They were dominating the game. You know, Liverpool were just playing on the counter attack and didn't really look like scoring in the first half. And you know, obviously as a Stoke fan, a very good day for us. But it wasn't really a shock result. Obviously 6-1 we didn't expect, but we seem to beat Liverpool at home most times we play them. So that's a tough game for Liverpool. And then Arsenal away, another team with you know, tough, as well as West Ham, tough away games. We've got Arsenal away, and I think that was 3-0 to Arsenal last season, that game. And obviously, without Sterling, it'll be even tougher for them next season. And West Ham, Man U away, is a very tough game for Liverpool. And obviously, with United strengthening the team even more so. So, you know, there's a lot of talk about Firmino, about Danny Ings, about James Milner potentially being very good signings for Liverpool, but I wouldn't get them in your team just yet with such tough away games. I mean, you could potentially go for, say, a Liverpool defender, such as Klein, but I think you'd have to rotate him every other week to avoid those tough games. And for Klein, who comes in at 5.5 million, is that worth doing? You know, he's an expensive player to rotate, definitely. And the final team with really tough fixtures are Everton. Now they've got West Ham. They've got Man City, Spurs, and Chelsea. You know, all at home, but all difficult fixtures. So, you know, Leighton Baines is a good fantasy player to have in your team. Plenty of goals and assists, but I'd wait till after about 5 or 6 weeks to get him in your team. The same with Seamus Coleman, the same as Lukaku as well, who's comes in at 8 million. Is a cheap player to have, but considering fixtures, I'd go for Graziano Pella. Well, that's what I've done to start the season, and then say after about 6 games, I'll probably get Lukaku in. So that's fixtures over and done with. We're going to look at now quickly. I mean, we've already had half an hour. I'm going to quickly go over new signings. Best new signings in each position. So Petr Cech in goal is, the highest profile goalkeeping move. Because he's from Chelsea, because of his record, he still holds the record of the most clean sheets in a season. So Petr Cech at 5.5 for Arsenal. The same price as Joe Hart, the same price as Thibaut Courtois. Depends whether you think Arsenal will keep more clean sheets than those two. So it's up to you. Micah Richards, I've gone for him as the best fantasy defender in terms of new signings. Comes in at 4.5, I think he's great value, very cheap. I think he'll slot straight into the Villa defence. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't start games for Villa, considering their defence. So midfield, we've got Dimitri Payet. Now West Ham, as I've said, have got very tough fixtures, so I wouldn't get him in just yet. But if you look at last season's stats, he got 7 goals and 17 assists, which in terms of assists is the 4th best in Europe. Very, very good. 17 assists. He's got a great delivery into the box. Good from set pieces. A player to consider. And the best striking option from all of the new signings. Now, there aren't many moves for strikers this summer, but Danny Ings for Liverpool at 7.5 million could be a bargain, I think. 7.5 million for a striker is very cheap. He might start for Liverpool. He did very well last season for Burnley. And that was for Burnley, who of course got relegated. He scored, I think, 10 goals for them. You'd expect him to do even better at Liverpool next season. So, they're all good players to have in terms of obviously new signings. Andre Ayew, 7 million for Swansea, could be worth a punt. Also, and obviously Raheem Sterling is a new signing for Man City.